Joe Dumars.
I don't know if Joe would translate. Joe a little too small.
Hold on.
But, but
He just said he
before I
don't know
get
if Joe would
into
translate. You must have got Jalen Brunson in his ear.
And
yeah,
plus, you
Jalen
forget that
Brunson
Joe
is like
Dumars also is like a 6-time
200
defender.
10 pounds.
Bro,
Joe's
He's a
what
like
does that matter? You said he was small.
he is.
he's a four-time
Anyway,
Joe Dumars is
all-defensive
six.
team.
Wait,
Hold
who
on.
are y'all talking
Joe
about?
Dumars was
They're
six
talking about Joe
one,
Dumars right now.
6'2",
bro, Joe Dumars was one of the
180
best defensive.
pounds.
Joe Dumars was one of the best defensive guards back then.
Exactly.
In this
A
Absolutely.
era, he would be the
four-time.
same thing.
No, he would not.
Thank
He's
you.
too
He's a
small.
four-time All-NBA defensive player. He's a 6-time All-Star from the 90s to 97 when Jordan was the premier guard. He was a shooting guard going up against him. He was one of the best defenders, and against the GOAT known as Jordan. This guy was averaging like 17 points, 46% from the field, and he also was a 38% three-point shooter. This is back in the 90s when they didn't even believe in three-point, and he's 38%. You mean to tell me that 38% ain't going to translate to
I don't think
plus as
offensively Joe would have
84%?
a difficult time.
Hold
I'm
on, an
talking
84%,
defensively.
an 84% free throw shooter, as well as what he was able to do defensively and offensively. There's tons of teams that can translate to him. And I
And
can
he
even
got a
give you
Finals
names of those
MVP.
teams where he could play for.
That Finals MVP.
And
That's
he
all
got a
good and
Finals
Finals
fine.
MVP,
MVP.
thank you. I forgot
I'm
about
talking
that.
about his
Finals MVP as
stature
well. And you're saying
as
he
a
can't
man.
translate?
If I'm six, the average point guard in the NBA now is what, 6'4" minimum? He's
Around there, yeah.
two he's 2 inches shorter and about 30 pounds lighter. He just couldn't, the way he bullied people in the 90s and the 80s, he can't do that in today's
That is
league. Oh,
nonsensical.
it's not.
Bro,
No.
bro,
How?
the
We're
Suns
talking
just
pure
signed,
physics.
the Suns
He
just signed
shot
Isaiah Thomas.
38%
Yeah,
in
Boy,
but
a
I think wait, just one mic at a time, please, just for listening purposes. But the Suns signing Isaiah Thomas isn't proof that Joe Dumars would be just as good as he was in the 80s as now. I think
why else would they sign him?
saying a two guard who is what 6'3", 185 is too
Yeah.
small for today's game.
He's
Why is
not.
that crazy?
But
What
it is crazy.
other
That's
two
dumb.
guards are his size?
That's straight up dumb.
Is
Nope.
Donovan Mitchell and who else? What other two guards are Joe Dumars size?
You got Donovan Mitchell,
Yeah.
and you got Jalen Brunson.
trade.
Huh?
He's
Two
a point
guards,
guard,
you
but
said?
yeah.
I was going to say
He's
Trey.
still a
They got
guard. You
Trey
said
from
guard.
I
Atlanta.
said
He's
no. I
still a
said two
guard.
guard. I
Two
explicitly
guard?
said
Okay.
two guard. I explicitly said
That's
two
what I was
guard.
making sure.
Yeah. I
Pretty
said
much
two
I mean,
guard.
right. But then
point guard, shooting guard, what does it matter? He's still a guard,
Well, I asked
and
about
he's
two guards.
small.
That's what I said. I said two. Unless you think Joe Dumars gonna play the one.
I mean, he would. He could.
He could pass. So
I think ideally Joe Dumars should
he was
play
a
too,
scorer. He
though.
was a scorer and a defender. and
that's
he
why
was,
I'm just asking for two guards because that's why Joe Dumars played. Who was Joe Dumars size in today's game?
Mars,
Yeah.
can I just answer the question about the 6'2"? I was like, what about Kyrie Irving?
Okay.
And he's terrible on defense. That
Wait,
goes back to my point. Like I'm not taking anything away from Joe's offense.
I would
I
say
think
this though, like
offensively he would be fine.
Hey Mars, what
But
do you think about World
defensively,
B3?
if you're expecting him to be the equivalent of a Jordan stopper in today's game with the size that they play with, it won't that would not translate.
I disagree.
Okay. So why do you think Joe Dumars would be a great defender in today's game?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, easily. It's the same way Drew Holiday operates. He guards the guards, and then they switch him off for a player. He guards those players too. Like he'll guard a KD. I done seen Drew Holiday guard a KD or get switched on another bigger player, and he guard him pretty good.
Is Drew Holiday not stronger than Joe Dumars?
I don't
Joe
remember.
Dumars is
I don't
very
know.
strong.
How far
I
are
don't
we
know if he's
going?
stronger or not.
Like
But
in two?
Joe Dumars is strong, but his foot speed is not the
Let me
greatest.
ask a question real quick. What is it that Joe Dumars does on defense that would translate well in today's game? What is he good at that will make him a good defender?
I can answer that. What he does is on ball in front of defense. What he does is keep the defender in front of him, and he also cuts off the passing lane as well. So his threat of that in today's game, where they do a lot of rotation, is very deadly because if you know, for example, if you know he has his man on the wing. I'm sorry, Mars, go ahead.
No. I'm after you, Dom. I'm just letting you know.
Oh, okay.
I'm
I was
talking
gonna
on-
say, like, if you know you have your man on the wing and he's playing defense, you don't need that help side defense on the back end because Joe Dumars can keep in front of his man. As opposed to where on the weekend, if the pass gets crossed over, let's say Triple J is rotating, he can rotate and be in position earlier because they know they can rely on Joe Dumars being in front of him, sort of like an Alex Caruso type. He could be like that. But I'm not saying to that level. I'm just saying it could be in that
How
effect.
tall is Joe Dumars, by the way?
He's
like
6'2".
Avery Bradley.
6'2",
6'2".
6'3".
Yeah, 6'2".
Could one not argue that Joe Dumars was so good at staying in front of people because he didn't have to
Actually, that
defend above the 3-point line?
That's what I was gonna say next.
Ooh,
They
good
didn't have to
catch,
cover as
Mars. That's
they
a
didn't have
good
to
one.
cover
I
as
like
much
that.
space.
Like that would kind of make a lot of perimeter defender obsolete throughout the era. Like if you said that,
no.
yeah, you have to guard till 3-point line, then that is a very recent trend.
But y'all are forgetting though. Y'all are only adding his defense. I already told you he's a 38% from 3-point shooter in an era that didn't believe in the 3-point.
He
So in
barely
today's
took it.
game, that's gonna go up. His attempts for three is
Like I
gonna go up.
vividly remember Joe
And he
Dumars have
played
like
34
bonker
minutes.
series in 1989 final. He averaged 27 point on absurd shooting plate while sweeping the Lakers in 89. I could be wrong.
Yeah, Joe Dumars'
Oh,
defensive
89
peak.
finals, yeah.
His
Yeah, he won
defensive
Finals
peak.
MVP.
I
Right?
agree.
Yeah, that's when he won
Definitely
Finals
That was
MVP.
after his dad died. His dad died, and he
Sorry.
went off. He
Yeah,
took
and
it.
he did that shooting like no threes in the series because he wasn't much
Exactly.
of a three. He wasn't much of a 3-point shooter. Like he
Was
could make, but
was
But that's
Dumars
what
a
I'm
good?
saying. In today's game, where he's allowed to shoot the three, and he was 38 back then, his game wouldn't just be 16 points. It'll be around 20, at least 22. Plus the defense. That's a good combo right there at a 6'2" position.
What did Dumars do well to stay in front of people is going to be my follow-up question to what you were saying earlier. Because you said he stayed in front of people well, but did you see him using his body a lot, or did you
Yes.
see him sliding his feet? Because from what I saw, he used his body a lot to keep people on the perimeter, and that's something he can't do today. Everybody is stronger than him. Jalen Brunson is running straight through him. There's no
But
guard outside of maybe like Kyrie who wouldn't just run straight through him today. And so he wouldn't be super skilled in that. And as well, I think that he is going to be playing on ball a lot, like you said. So I don't know how he's going to stay in passing lanes when the game is so much more spread out and it's not as condensed as it was before. So he isn't playing these tighter passing lanes. He's having to play longer, further away passing lanes, and he's already limited by his height. I don't know what his wingspan is, but I'm going to assume it's not long enough that he can get on-ball passing lane steals like Wemby.
I was going to say, good point about the physicality. He was good at moving his feet, but also in today's era as well, that contact when they lower their shoulder, even Brunson gets it. That's a defense. That's an offensive foul. Because you see the good thing about Brunson, him being small, he could slide in and he'll get that chest contact and it'll be a charge. And sometimes you're like, what the hell? But because he's small, you could get that off with Joe Dumars as well. Good point. I like that. But he was also good in sliding his feet. He used more of his physicality because when they contacted him, he didn't want to give them that space to where they can fade off and get into it. That's why when Jordan was playing against him, Jordan had to be more downhill. When Jordan tried to do that fade off, his hand was still in his face, still there. That's the good part about Joe Mars being physical with the chest and everything.
What would you guys say Joe Dumars' defensive peak was?
Around
Yeah.
90, early 90s.
like 90 to like 93 ish.
Okay.
Like those years.
Because I was
So
asking that
after they won
because-
championships, basically.
Like
okay.
I have
Because a
listened
lot of
one
the-
interview from Dumars himself, where Dumars essentially said that his main guarding philosophy was that he would let you score 30, but he will make sure that you score 30 on 30 possession. His main thing was that, like he will
Him
stick in
understands it,
front
true
of you.
Joe Dumars understood true shooting.
See?
I kind of have to challenge what Logan is saying. For you to say that Jalen Brunson is going to run through Joe Dumars was guarding twos that were way bigger than him. So for you to say that he had the lack of strength to guard Jalen Brunson is disingenuous. On top of that, he had fast feet, fast hands. He was the Avery Brad. I wouldn't say he was as ferocious on the end. No, hear me out. But as far as skill set, have fast feet, strong hands, good IQ. ability to cut off certain driving lanes. Now, I understand the aspect of the spacing is going to be different. However, I think him having strong hands and having fast, quick hands can adjust. I mean, could make up the foot speed that you guys think that he wouldn't lack, or the spacing that would affect that. And as well, I just think the IQ and knowing how he showed so much ability as far as IQ and understanding the game. I think it would have translated in terms of that. If Avery Bradley can have a career in the NBA, I think Joe Dumars would have a career in the NBA. Now, would he be an all-star? I don't think so, but I think he would be a serviceable starting guard. It's gonna be tough. It would just have to be a certain team to play around that. Same thing like Boston. Like Avery Bradley couldn't play on a whole bunch of teams. There were certain teams where he thrived on, and there were certain teams he didn't thrive on. So
I think what people seem to forget about is that there's a lot of quick guards back in maybe the late 80s and early 90s. Like you're talking about Kevin Johnson, you're talking about Tim Hardaway, you're talking about like maybe even later on like Damon Stoudemire. A lot of these quick guards that players had to stay in front of. And Joe Dumars, him. I guess they didn't match up a lot, maybe. But my thing is that staying in front of Jordan in itself is kind of crazy, considering how quick his first step was. Just being able to stay in front of him is something that people need to consider when they're talking about translating to errors, because even though you can talk about how other players weren't as quick back then, maybe, but there's not a lot of players in this league today who are as quick off the first step than Jordan. So if he can stay with that, there's not a lot of players today he couldn't stay in front of, in my opinion.
And if, as far as the teams that he could play with today, whether he's a 2 guard or a point guard, you could look at the Lakers, you could look at Miami, and you could even look at the Bucks. Any one of those teams, he would be better. I think he would be better at the point than Dame, because of how he was with true shooting and how he's able to facilitate, and they won't really need that much help on defense, and Giannis can just go. I think, I'm sorry, I'm rambling again, but the Lakers in Miami, there's a lot of other teams out there as well.
Now you were on to something. Like, trust me, I want Joe Dumars in my team other than D'Angelo Russell.
We do not want.
Because I want to keep the defensive core there. I don't think Dame's offense would. And to be honest with you, I think that Joe Dumars is more effective offensively than Dame. Don't get me wrong. Dame is a better scorer. Dame can go off and have a higher peak. But what I'm saying is, as far as consistency with defense and balance with what Milwaukee has, for them to have a guard that could probably give them 20 points with assists, high free throw percentage shooting, a score, and play defense, Giannis can just play basketball. And it's free flowing. It's not like he has to give Joe Dumars the ball. That's the difference between him and
JD is like capable of having 25 points per game ceiling.
Joe doesn't. Joe could play defense, get a skill, create for Giannis. Joe could come back and create his own 3-point.
Join way.